Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever in the world you are. And today we are so happy to have Arlene to share with us about paper textures and interference paints. So Arlene is a calligraphy artist from California, right? Yes.
Yep.
And she was a part of the Symbiosis program. So today I'm just going to hand over the time to her. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I will do my best to try not to speak too quickly. When I get nervous, I tend to go fast, and so I will try to slow down a little bit. Most of my slides do have some words on them. I did that intentionally for people who may struggle with a little bit of English, but I will be doing a bit of talking as well. So thank you for being here. I am not professional at anything I'm going to share with you. They're just techniques that that I played with during the Symbiosis experiment, experimental techniques that were that I stumbled across and that made a really big impact to me and have really gotten me interested in them. I find them very fun. And they're not hard to do. So that's what makes them really, really special. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Great. All right. So today we'll be talking about playing with paste paper and interference paints. I know that you guys probably want to see more about the interference paints, but I'm starting with paste paper.
It's okay.
Paste paper is a very fun technique. It's something that you can get dramatic results very easily. And what's really neat about it is actually very smooth. So if I wanted to write over the top of any of these waves or the clouds, I could easily do that. But what is paste paper? How is it made? What is its history? What is it used for? And what can we do with it today? Many of us might remember finger painting when we're children. The texture of paste paper is very, very similar to what we painted with as children. Historically, paste paper was made using a combination of some type of starch flour, either corn, wheat, or rice, that is combined with water, cooked in a double boiler, and mixed with water-soluble pigment to form a thick paint. Today, the simplest way to make it is by mixing wallpaper paste or Elmer's art paste with water and tinting it with acrylic paint. Paste papers have been made since the 1500s and were used as a less expensive option to marbled papers in bookmaking. Rosamond Loring was an author, bookbinder, and a creator, collector, and historian of decorated papers. Her collection of historic and modern papers is now housed at Harvard University and is still used by librarians, book publishers, collectors, and researchers. Many of the following examples are from her collection. This is a piece from around 1580. It's using a technique called pulled paste paper. And if you look really carefully underneath the paste, you'll see printing. So this paper was recycled, and it was something that was typically done to reuse paper because paper was so expensive. This is a technique called combing. You'll notice that the effect that this combed technique gives, it mimics marbling. As I mentioned, marbled papers have historically been very expensive. Paste paper provides a very affordable and attainable option and is made with common household items, and the techniques are much easier than marbling. I'm going to be walking through the various classifications of techniques for paste paper, so you're going to be seeing a few different styles. This is known as daubing and pulling. So there's a combination here of paper that has been put together and then pulled apart. And they may have taken a dry brush or rag on top of that and added some of the dimension. Paste paper can also be printed either with wooden blocks or today with like silicone stamps, things like that. You can either do it in where you're taking the paint off as or putting paint back on. So it's very versatile. From 1764 to 1825, the Sisters of Herrnhut, a group of unmarried women living in a strict Moravian church community in Herrnhut, Germany, produced blue, red, and green paste papers using a mix of drawn and printed techniques. They actually sold these papers, so it was a form of income for them. Here is a technique called spattering. The one on the left was done by, I think they said that they used like a horsehair bristle brush kind of thing and passed it over a screen to drop droplets, very fine droplets down on the paper. And the one on the right you can see is just spattering of heavier drops that kind of ran together. And then this is traditional pulled paper. I was really intrigued by the red piece on the right, and I played around to try to figure out the technique for achieving this dimensional look. I think I got pretty close with it, and I'll show you that in one of my pieces. And then this is daubing. So they would have used a rag or even a brush to kind of stipple the texture on the paste paper they would have put it on and then taken it off and made patterns in it with rags or sponges or things like that. Today, there's a woman named Madeline Durham. She lives in New Mexico. This work is hers, and she is one of the leading artists producing paste paper today. Her work is amazing. She produces paste paper in many forms, but my very favorites are her landscapes. One of my bucket list items is to attend one of her workshops someday. So here are some of the things that I decided to demonstrate for you guys. You can see that on the right side, I had just roughly brushed on the paste paper on a sheet of paper. It's lying on some paper towels on my desktop. I have a cutting mat on my desk so that I don't stain my desk. And then I decided to try covering a roller, a brayer, with tape and jute ribbon just to see what texture that I would get. So here's a quick little video of that. And you can kind of see that it gave a really interesting texture. However, I didn't really like it. So I did some different things with it. I brushed it all out again and then went over it with a tool that helps you button buttons. I have a very weak hand. I have a neuromuscular disease. And so sometimes when my hands get really cold, I can't button up my own buttons, and I'll have to use this tool to help me. And I thought, well, I wonder what kind of marks that it would make. And so I found that it gave a really interesting technique. I'm going to kind of see if I can, whoop, that didn't work. Well, I tried to speed it up, but got all the way to the end and that's not working. So anyway, I apologize. That's what it ended up looking like. And you can see that it looks, very dimensional, but again, it's very smooth. And then next, I'm just showing you here what I mixed. I mixed some acrylic paint into the little cups that have the paste in them. And then I dropped in some of the acrylic and mixed it up. It's that simple. The next is a video of me just kind of dropping it down. Again, I wish I could scrub through this and make it go faster because I think this video is a little long, but you'll get the idea of literally there's no wrong or right way to do this stuff. You can just play with it over and over again. And if you don't like it, especially if it's one color, you can just brush over it and start over without throwing the paper away. Here I mixed in those 4 colors. You can see that I just dropped them in just a random pattern. I actually ended up with way too much paint on this page, though, by the time I was done, and ended up pulling it the first time, and it was very gloppy, and I didn't really get any dimensions. So I took a couple of extra blank sheets of paper and did them a second time, and I was pretty happy with the result that I got. Rather than having you watch.
Arlene, Arlene, a question. Does it matter what kind of paper you use this on?
In this case, I would say don't use copier paper. This paper does have a little cotton content to it. So you want something that will hold up because you are moistening it first. I'm spraying it with paper, some water, a little bit of water first. So you want something that is thin enough to be used if you wanted to use it in bookmaking, but it needs to be able to hold up. So I would say it has to have some cotton content to it.
And what about the light fastness? Have you tested?
Well, it's acrylic paint basically, so I would assume it's going to be pretty light fast.
So you mix up the content of the paste paper first in batches. Okay, and does it like, can you keep it for very long? Do you have to put any kind of thing to prevent mold?
You put it in the refrigerator. So that's the thing that I like about using and I'll show you what I used. I used a wallpaper paste because even though it is wheat, it doesn't seem to get too fermented or weird as some of the other cornstarches and things like that can go bad very quickly. I had my tub of it for 2 weeks in the refrigerator and it was still fine, but I used water that was purified and boiled and then cooled, so that I didn't have a bunch of bacteria in it to start with.
Right, that's good to know. So distilled water.
Basically distilled water, or boiled water at the very least, and then keep it in the fridge. So here I'm just drawing a pattern as much as I could from the backside. I didn't, that's the beginning. Let me go to what I ended up with.
Because I did it so thick the first time. And
can you hear that audio?
I'm going to try this again with another sheet of paper just to see if I pull some of it off and lighten this up a little bit. We'll see. I'm going to try to pull some pattern in it. Messy. Just like finger painting.
This looks fun.
It is fun. It really is. And you'll see the next image of it. I really was pretty happy with the technique. I think I put on too much paint still, but I figured out how those guys did that cool texture that I was after. So I was excited by that.
All right. Now, let's see what happened. Did it get any better? I don't know.
I think can you just buy paste paper and then add acrylic paint to it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, that was a little better.
I made it once and it just turned in. It was not a good experiment. So just wondering.
Oh no. Shoot. Was it too thin or was it?
It was too thick. I think I even used some gelatin or something, but then it ended up in, it just turned into almost like a solid, like a jelly mold.
Oh, okay. Well, you could always try to incorporate more water with that and use a hand blender to smooth it out. And then I've seen people pass it through cheesecloth or even like the leg of a pantyhose and just squeeze it out to get all the lumps out so it would be smooth again. So yeah, there are ways of thinning it back out. It does sound like that thick would be hard to work with. But in my first presentation, if you saw it, I actually thinned it out and then painted it on a damp paper and used it like watercolor paper or watercolor. I made roses with it that looked like watercolor roses. So there's endless possibilities.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So can you kind of see how I got this kind of tube-like texture that I was after, where the tops of the the colors kind of look like they're, I don't know, to me, they look like little tubes or mountains. I don't know. I was happy with the result of this one. I was excited because it reminded me of that historical piece a little bit. The next is an example of stamping with a silicone roller. And so this was very quick and easy to do. I could see how you could just produce a lot of papers this way. It would be a lot of fun. So you could, of course, mix colors on your page. You don't have to do just one color. You can do anything you want. You could even go back in afterward with another tool and add more leaves if you wanted more leaves, or, you know, you can embellish it even further. So that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And that's what it ended up looking like. The next one, I made a comb to attempt the combed technique. I made it by just marking on the cardboard paper with a ruler and then taking a small hole punch and just punching out at that even interval. And this is a video of me playing with that technique. Of course, my paper, you'll see it kind of buckle up. Some of the struggle I had was that I didn't have my paper anchored to anything, and it just kind of, it would lift. But it ended up working out okay. I really wish I could fast forward, guys, for you, because I know you may not want to sit here and watch it, but
I think it's good to know that this is the pace at which you're working.
Yeah.
Somebody might just like go swipe and then find that it's not the effect. So I noticed that when it dries, it looks different from when it's wet.
A little bit. Yeah. Of course, the sheen gets lost.
But it looks more dimensional.
But it does look more dimensional. Yeah.
Okay. This is so cool, Arlene.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. You know, it's really a fun thing to do with kids too. I just don't think you can screw it up, other than making a mess. You really can't screw it up.
Look at that. Cool, very cool. This comb that you made, it's cardboard?
Yeah, it's just chipboard. It was
right.
something that came in a package with something else. And it held up pretty well. I did this several times. I didn't video every time I did it, and I didn't really like the way that looked. So the next slide is, this is a little bit more of a ribbon effect, and I liked it a little better. So I thought I'd show you that one.
Very nice.
The next was my version of spatter. So I had done some pulling. I had done some adding other paint on, and then I had dropped on the acrylic paints. Some of them were, they were the thinner high flow acrylic paints. They weren't the ones that come in a tube. And I love the little legs that you get from the drops. They're really cool. I thought that was kind of fun. Kind of, my son says, "Mom, that looks like something growing on a dish under the mud, like bacteria growing on a dish." I said, okay. This next one was an example of pulling, sort of doing a book fold. And so you have, obviously, if you have a directional pattern, then you have like a book-ended reverse image of it. And this one I did with an old makeup brush. I just painted, essentially lifted off the color with the brush to leave the little leaf pattern. And this one I did with a filbert brush and just sort of jiggled it down in these descending little rows. And I thought that was kind of a cool texture. And these are basically the tools that I used. Nothing fancy. And this is the watercolor. I'm sorry. Sorry, I have a cold here, so my brain is not working. The wallpaper paste that I used. My ratio was about 4 cups water to 1 cup powder. So you could cut that in half again if you wanted to do a smaller batch. And then just blend it to remove any lumps. You can add maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon or a couple of drops of glycerin, and then tint it with any kind of acrylic paint and store it in the refrigerator. It's very simple. That's pretty much the end of paste paper. Does anyone have any other questions about it?
Any questions? You can unmute and just speak because there are not that many of us.
I have a question.
Yes.
So since you were saying that, you know, you have to put it in the refrigerator and everything, is it prone to getting bacteria or mold after you do the design? And if you want to put it in a frame or send it to a friend in a, you know, in an envelope?
After it's dry?
Uh-huh.
No. I mean, maybe in a humid environment that could happen, but you can see from the historical examples that it holds up pretty well. So I would think no, because you essentially have an acrylic paste or acrylic paint left behind.
Because of the binding in the acrylic paint itself?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't study scientifically about it.
Do you have to fix it after it's done? Like, do you spray like a fixative?
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, if you're still working with it and you feel like it's starting to get sticky on you, you can just spray it over with water again and give you more time to keep playing with it. It's very forgiving, but no, you don't have to fix it. I've got my papers sitting here. Not that I know you probably hate when people hold stuff up in front of the screen, but it's just, this is really thin. On some, I put way too much paint on it. Like the really deeply colored one I did was way too thick. But when you do it thin like this, it's very easy to use for almost any project. Any other questions? Okay. So interference paint, and we will attempt to answer the same set of questions. What is it? How is it made? What's its history? What's it used for? And what can we do with it today? So we see iridescence a lot in nature. And the way that occurs in nature is through reflection and refraction of light. And there's so many beautiful examples in nature. But this actually started, interference paint was originally created for the automobile industry. Then some of the people who make acrylic paints decided that they could take the pigments and use them in acrylic paints. So I'm going to try to explain how it works. It's a little bit technical, so please forgive me for that. I couldn't really find an easy way to explain it, but I'll do my best. The property at work in the interference colors is known as light interference, most commonly seen in the rainbow effect created by a thin layer of oil on the surface of water. When light strikes a boundary between two materials of different densities, the light will either be reflected or refracted. If the refracted light encounters yet another boundary between materials of different densities, this light will again either be reflected or refracted. This process continues every time a new phase occurs. Light interference results from multiple reflections and refractions of light happening at the same time. With interference colors, a specific thickness of titanium dioxide layers allows only a narrow spectrum of color to be reflected, while other reflected colors undergo destructive interference and are not visible. Since these pigments are transparent, only a portion of the light will be transmitted, and the resulting color will appear as the complement to the reflected color. I apologize for that. I know that's very technical. Here is a little schematic of something I found online for this. So the reflective element in these paints is mica. We all know what that is. It's in makeup. People use it for all kinds of things to make things shiny. And then the mica is coated, all the little particles are coated with different thicknesses of titanium dioxide. And depending on the thickness of the titanium dioxide, it will reflect different colors of light. So you can see in the first example, you would have white light is reflected. The second one, you would have yellow light reflected. It's a little thicker layer. The third would be green. So I don't know if that helps. These are so thin that you really can't to see them, but it's a fascinating substance. The combination of these mica-coated pigments are mixed with acrylic medium, which is translucent or transparent. This allows the light to penetrate through the acrylic medium and to reflect and refract to show the desired interference color. Mica is quite insoluble and in strong acids or bases, and is inherently light fast and remains unaffected by water. When combined with 100% acrylic medium, mica yields very stable paints that offer excellent permanency. So it's very stable and it is long lasting, and the effect won't change over time. Here is a little card that I painted black paint on and left the white background, and you can kind of see what happens with each of the colors. Over black, they show a little bit more. On the white background, though, they really don't show very much at all. And this is looking straight down on it. It's painted on pretty thickly. So if I had just done a really faint layer, you might not have even seen it too much over the black. This, I turned the light at an angle to show you some more of the refraction. You can see how it kind of lights up when the light hits it at the right angle. Here is just striped across a bunch of different colors. Again, this is straight down. And then at an angle, it really glows. It can be diluted very easily with water. It can also be added to different acrylic mediums. So there's gel medium, there's, you can add it to all the different acrylic mediums so that you don't spend as much money on the paint itself, because they're a little bit expensive. The little tubes are, I think they're about $6 or so a piece. So that can add up pretty quickly. But there are ways to extend it. How I used it in my paintings was I actually diluted it with water and just added little bits of highlight to it. I was introduced to this particular medium by Randall Hassan, and he did a painting of an angel that is phenomenal. It's a large piece, and I wish I could see it in person. I'm going to show you that next. He did the whole piece with interference. And because of the way that the light changes with it, he's got it hung on a wall, and at different times of the day, as the sun moves around, the piece looks completely different. He's got a lot of inspirational words that are written down in smaller and smaller and smaller print inside this piece. So there's a whole lot of dimension to it as far as the script goes, but also as far as the interference paint. It's a phenomenal piece. Another person that he introduced us to was Nancy Rayner. She does a lot with backgrounds that are, she'll do gold leaf backgrounds and then paint on top of it. But she also incorporates interference paints into her pieces. She does beautiful work if you ever get a chance to look her up. If you saw my previous presentation, this was a piece I showed in there. And I just decided to add a little bit of interference paint to it here and there to kind of add a little bit of highlight and have a little fun with it. So you can kind of see how the clouds have a little bit of more glow to them. Some of the hilltops have a little bit more sheen, and the sky has a little bit of illumination to it as well. I used this most heavily in my piece called Alpha and Omega. In fact, I feel like this piece just wouldn't have been the same if I didn't use interference paint. It made it really special. And I've got a little video that I'll show you of, it was from my original presentation, that shows you how this changes. I apologize, it's a little bit shaky, but you can kind of see how when the light comes on, the Alpha and Omega turns gold, the clouds turn gold. And as I zoom in, you'll notice the rays that are coming down and going up from the clouds also glow blue and red, whereas you really couldn't see that before the light was hitting it. So that was just the centerpiece of this particular piece. I really was thrilled to be able to use the interference paint. And that is actually the end of my presentation. So I will stop sharing here and ask if any of you have any questions.
Elizabeth is raising your hand. Do you have a question?
Amanda, I
I'm
didn't want to
sorry.
interrupt your
I'm not-
presentation. No, I
Feel
did
free.
not want to interrupt your presentation.
Feel
So
free.
thank you for doing this. This was very beneficial, and I love your work. And
Well, thank
thanks for
you.
thanks for doing this, and to the organizers too. Thanks, Dorothy. So I bought some with their I guess interference paints, but they change color. So if you look at them at one light, it's red, but if you turn it or do something, it'll turn yellow.
Mhm.
Is that an interference paint, or is that maybe something
It
different?
sounds like it. I don't know exactly. I'm only familiar with the Golden brand interference paint, but I do know if you look at the interference paint across, like I did that black and white side by side,
Yeah.
and across the black you could see green, and then on the white side, if you looked carefully, you could go back. Well, maybe I can go back to the slide, but you can see well, no, then I'll probably start the whole slideshow over. But you could see its complementary color. So you could see the glowing bit of green over the black, but if you looked at on the white, you could kind of see red. Like its complementary value. You know how in that technical language that I was reading, it was talking about light being refracted, and then the complementary color would show through. That's kind of what was going on, but it's not really obvious. So I don't know what you have. What you have sounds pretty magical. I think I'd like to.
It's, I mean, can I, if that's okay, it's not a plug. I don't own stock in this woman's work.
I'd love to see it.
It's called Iluli. She's the woman that makes her paints, and I belong to a calligraphy guild called Pacific Scribes on the West Coast.
Yep.
And a couple people have purchased her products on Etsy. She doesn't sell them on Amazon. Shocking. Nothing on Amazon. Maybe today, but this was like a couple years ago. And she spells, I'll put it in the chat as well, but it's Sayuli. I think I'm saying it correctly. But I've never seen color shifting. That's what they're, I guess, called color shifting watercolors.
Okay.
And yeah, so, but
those are watercolor then. The thing,
it's a watercolor.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. The thing that makes these really amazing, and these are what the bottles look like, is that they are completely bulletproof once they're dry. They are light fast. They are on forever. They're not going to rub off. They're not going to change. They're very stable, and they really add, you can mix them with colors as well. If you have too much pigment, though, you'll start blocking that refractive property. But I like to add them. I like to dilute them with water or with the fluid extenders that you can get that go with acrylic paints. Acrylic paints are a whole new world for me, and it's like a different language. I'm used to watercolor, but there are so many interesting possibilities that have opened up with acrylic paints. But you can dilute it, and then you're not putting it on in a way that is so obvious. You can be very subtle with it, and it just adds a really beautiful little sheen to everything. So
it sounds like what you have is a watercolor, and then what Arlene is using is acrylic. So it's a totally different media. Yeah, but color shifting, probably some properties of the color shifting comes from the mica that they add in.
Yeah, so I put the woman's name in
in
the chat, and I'm a huge fan of buying from artists or people that actually make it versus I'm not saying there's anything bad with manufactured paints, but her prices were pricey, but the colors were just really amazing. So
check that out. That sounds really interesting. Thanks for bringing that up.
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to ask Arlene, when you mix the interference paints, do you mix them like red and blue,
Yeah.
purple?
Yeah, you can do that. Mm-hmm.
Right, but the reflected light then is different. So you have to just test it out to see what.
You just test it out. Let me see. Where did I put that piece? Let's see. No, I don't have that. Yeah, I have mixed them. I used it on I did actually. Here's an example. So I was in Randall's class. Can you guys see this?
Mm.
I did a verso letter C, very original there. And I used interference paints and I mixed the gold and red to kind of get an orange color to try to complement this background that I created. And so, yeah, you can do that. It's kind of fun.
Very nice. Thanks.
Oh, that's an example of mixing the interference paints.
Cool. Does anyone else have questions for Arlene?
I am definitely no expert at this. I've just had a lot of fun with it, with both the paste paper and with interference paints. So I would encourage you to try them. If you were only going to buy one color, I would say start with gold, because gold is so universal and so beautiful on so many things.
Right. Well, I don't see any questions on the chat. Yeah, just a lot of comments. Yeah. So, Arlene, when you say back to the paste paper, when you say you pull the paint, you're talking about, how the marks that you're making with your fingers. Is that what it means? Okay.
No, pulled paper is where you have two pieces stuck together and then you pull them apart.
Oh, okay, got it.
And you have that texture. And some people, I mean, you can do it a couple ways. You can do it like you saw me do. I had a heavy base coat of all the different colors. And then I put plain paper on top and kind of tried to absorb it because I had too much paint on there, and then pulled. Or you can do two different colors on either side of the paper and then put them together. And then they sort of influence each other when you pull them apart. How you pull the paper from, for instance, if you pull it diagonally, you're going to have a diagonal pattern that goes across your page. If you pull it from the side, it'll be more, horizontal. So there's so many options. You could use a tool if you wanted to draw in the background. You could use a calligraphy, a broad edge calligraphy pen. And I've seen really cool scroll work done, or even you could do writing. I think one of my test things I did early on that was shown in my my first presentation was just the word test written in like blue background with yellow paste paper over the top. So you can write in it. You can do all kinds of things.
So after the paste paper is dried, you can write with calligraphic inks on it.
Yeah, it's perfectly smooth. I guess I probably should have done that for you guys. I'm sorry. That would have been nice, but yeah, it's really pretty smooth. If you don't put a lot on, you can write right on top of it.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. So many techniques to try. Yeah, Elizabeth, go ahead.
What about using like micron pens, marker pens?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So basically, the sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit. Right? Yeah. Okay. Anything, because it's like writing on acrylic paper or acrylic paint. It's watertight. It's not going to bleed. It's not going to do anything. What is really nice about acrylics is a lot of times you get a chance, and even because this is essentially acrylic when it's dry, if I were to write on this, I could take a damp paper towel and wipe it off and it wouldn't hurt it at all. I'd get a second chance.
Oh, wow. Very forgiving.
Yeah, very forgiving. And if I went over it in the same place a few times, I might start eroding it a little bit. But yeah, it's really forgiving. You can do so much with it.
Very nice.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I can imagine so many ways to use this, wrapping paper, greeting cards, I don't know, whatever else.
Or so many people are into bookbinding now, right? So you could totally do your own little book cover with this and just glue it down. It's just so versatile. You could do it if you wanted to make it like an art piece. You could do it on watercolor paper. Sorry, I'm fishing in my stack here. This one was done on a little thicker paper. But even so, it's smooth enough that I could write right on top of that. If I had a book title that I wanted to write, I could easily do it with calligraphy.
Why didn't you show this in exhibition? Arlene, these are so gorgeous.
I hate to say this. Remember my life from in cracks of time. It has not slowed down. I've been at the hospital dealing with my mom a lot this week. I actually did all these papers last night.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for doing this.
I had paper all over my studio here, and just I can't let you see the floor because there's still a mess back here behind me. I got my camera view clean though.
Thank you for doing this. Amazing. And all the videos are so helpful. A lot of comments are saying that, okay, this is great technique, wonderful backgrounds, really good textures. And so for so many of us, paste paper and interference paints are new. So this has been so very informative. Thank you so much. Really.
Welcome. Yeah, it was completely new to me too. I was floored, when I first saw it and saw Madeline Durham's work, I fell in love. And then as I started preparing for this presentation and realized the rich history of paste papers, I was really blown away, and it really got me very excited about it. So that was cool.
Thank you. That's awesome. Great. Any other
Thank you everybody for your interaction and your questions. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. Any other questions or comments for Arlene? Okay, if not, I will stop the recording here. Thank you, Arlene. It was a great presentation.